Today, we know the story of a king who overcame many obstacles to sit on the throne. He was the second son of King James VI. Today, we will learn his story. In January 1649, a king walked calmly to a scaffold outside the Palace of Whitehall. He was not a foreign invader. He was not a traitor. He was Charles I of England, a crowned monarch about to be executed by his own people. For the first time in European history, a reigning king would be publicly tried and killed by order of his own government. How did England reach this moment? Who was Charles I, the man, the ruler, the husband, the believer? And how did his reign ignite a civil war that permanently changed the course of democracy? This is the life story of Charles I of England. Charles Stuart was born on November 19, 1600, at Dunfermline Palace in Scotland. He was the second son of James VI of Scotland, who later became James I of England. No one expected Charles to be king. He was small, physically weak, and struggled with a speech impediment. His elder brother, Prince Henry, was athletic, confident, and popular. Everything Charles was not. But fate intervened. In 1612, Prince Henry suddenly died of illness. Overnight, Charles became heir to the throne. From that moment, Charles grew up in the shadow of expectations he never wanted but could never escape. In 1625, James I died, and Charles became King of England, Scotland, and Ireland at just 24 years old. Charles believed deeply in one idea above all others: the divine right of kings. He believed kings were chosen by God. He believed obedience to the crown was a religious duty, and he believed Parliament existed to advise, not challenge him. This belief would define and destroy his reign. Soon after becoming king, Charles married Henrietta Maria of France, a Catholic princess. In Protestant England, this was deeply unpopular. Many feared Catholic influence at court, a return to religious persecution, foreign control over English politics. Charles ignored these fears. His devotion to his wife was genuine, but politically disastrous. Charles needed money. England was involved in costly wars with Spain and France, and the royal treasury was nearly empty. Parliament agreed to fund the king, but only if he accepted limits on his power. Charles refused. Instead, he dissolved Parliament repeatedly, imposed taxes without approval, forced loans from wealthy subjects. In 1629, Charles made a radical decision. He dismissed Parliament entirely. For the next 11 years, he ruled alone. This period became known as the Personal Rule, or the 11 Years' Tyranny. Charles governed without Parliament by reviving ancient taxes like ship money, using royal courts to silence critics, and enforcing strict religious policies. At first, England remained quiet, but resentment was growing, especially in Scotland. Charles tried to impose a new prayer book on Scotland, one that looked suspiciously Catholic. The result? Open rebellion. Scottish Protestants signed the National Covenant and raised an army. Charles needed money to fight them, and that meant only one thing: he had to recall Parliament. The new Parliament, later called the Long Parliament, did not forgive easily. They demanded reforms, arrested the king's advisors, limited royal authority. Charles saw this as treason. In 1642, he made a fatal mistake. He marched into Parliament with soldiers to arrest 5 members. They escaped. London erupted. England was now divided. The country split into 2 sides. Royalists, or Cavaliers, supported the king, mostly nobles and rural areas. Parliamentarians, or Roundheads, supported Parliament, led by Oliver Cromwell. For years, England was torn apart by brutal civil war. Families fought families, cities were destroyed, faith turned neighbor against neighbor. Despite early successes, Charles made poor strategic decisions. In 1646, he surrendered to the Scottish army. But even in captivity, Charles refused compromise. He secretly negotiated. He plotted new uprisings. He believed God would restore him. Instead, his actions convinced Parliament that peace was impossible while he lived. In 1649, Charles I was placed on trial for treason against his own people. He refused to recognize the court's authority. "No earthly power can judge a king," he declared. The court disagreed. Charles I was found guilty. The sentence was death. On a cold winter morning, Charles I stepped onto the scaffold. He wore 2 shirts so observers would not mistake shivering for fear. He prayed quietly. He forgave his enemies. He placed his head on the block. With one strike, the monarchy fell. England became a republic. Charles I failed as a ruler, but changed history forever. His death ended absolute monarchy in England, strengthened parliamentary democracy, inspired future revolutions across Europe and America. Ironically, his son would later return to the throne, but England would never again allow a king to rule unchecked. Charles I believed kings ruled by divine will. Instead, his reign proved something revolutionary. Power belongs to the people, not the crown. His life is a warning. His death is a turning point, and his legacy still shapes modern democracy today.